Hello guys, welcome back again. So now that we've seen that the admin component is working, talking about the dashboard and also the meeting, although we haven't tested it yet, but we can say that yeah, it's going to work. Now we're going to work with the attendee. Now attendee needs to, that's a user, needs to first have a link, that's a meeting link, and then based on that link, he needs to provide the username before this user can be connected to the meeting. Okay, now within that, after user is connected, with the name that the attendee is going to provide, a token needs to be generated from the Twilio API, and then based on that token, he can then connect with the video through this token. Okay, so in there, let's see how we can handle that. Let me just share the screen, and then there we're going to create a folder for the admin, and then we're going to create the various components in it to finish this. So in this, we go to the same pages. We have the admin, and here we're going to create admin or host. Then we can say right attendee or user. So anyone can be attendee, could be user. Then in that, we're going to create our component or a page where it's going to be join meeting page. So this is going to be used by only attendee. And now with this join meeting page, we first need to specify the route here. Now this page has join meeting. Now this join meeting, it takes in some parameters. One is the meeting ID. Another one here is going to be the passcode. Okay, so with this, we need to go out and this should inherit from a layout. Now with this, we need to create a layout for this user because user or attendee and admin should not have the same layout, different layout. So let's go to the layout from this and then create another component. Then we're going to say that this is going to be attendee layout. Now with the attendee layout, it's quite simple, slick layout that you want to create. We're just having that's the default one. When you check our main layout, I just took off this and now maintain the same. So this is quite simple. That is it. So we're going to use that layout in the joint meeting, which is the attendee page. So let's go and reference the layout here. So now that we are done with that, let's see how we can write the code for that. Now, when the code initializes, we first need to have parameters. Now, these parameters are going to hold the meeting ID and now the passcode, right? Now, we can go and check from onParameter set this lifecycle method to check if any of this is null, then we want to return something such that are unable to connect to the server, invalid credential. So we can say that invalid meeting, yes, credentials provided. You can go ahead and add more here. But well, I'm going to be having our message and also a message model as usual. These are the variables I'm going to create to hold on the message and now the this component parameter. Now, the next thing that we're going to be doing here is we're also going to have the loader also indicated to false. And then we're going to be having client container. So remember that in the admin page, we created admin container, right? So there's a container ID or container element ID. Anyone is okay. So we have this, and then when parameter sets, we checking that and I return. But in case they do have values, then what are we going to do? Then when page initializes, we can go ahead and start the meeting join. So let's get that lifecycle method of page initializes. Yes, async. And in here, I think let's close this before it gives us error. And in there, we want to first show this model. So is model open, let's set that to true. Now, where from this model, that is the model always going to allow a user or a client to provide his name. Okay, so let's have this also created. Now we're going to be having this model set that to false default, and then when the page initializes, you want to set that to true, and after that we're going to connect to we're going to get access to our token. So within that, you're going to be using the Twilio service that we created to provide the username and the meeting ID, because that is what it needs to get it. So we're going to generate the meeting token from here. So we call this Twilio service, and it's going to return a response. And now this response, we're going to provide the name. The name is going to be passed on here, so we can create a variable to handle that. Now this variable could be an attendee name. Let's have something like that. So we're going to have a string, and let's say username, or we can actually make it in a form of a model, right? Yes, I think that would be amazing. So we can create a profile here down. We want to pass it as edit form, so we can validate it. Okay, because user cannot join without providing a name. So we create this, and from we need to create an instance of this object. Let's say this is connected or connect profile. We can create it over here. Connect profile. That means we're going to create an edit form with that. And in here, if I want to connect, I can pass on this connect profile.name. And this should be an async. And now the response going to come here is going to be a response with the token, the access token from this Twilio service. Now that if I have this token, maybe I can go on and just check if the token is null. But we can check if it's success, meaning it is not null. As soon as it's success, then it is not null. So we can just check it out from here. So here we're saying that, well, if the response that is coming in, it is not successful because we are negating it, then you want to set the response, because if it's not successful, definitely it's going to have an attached message. Then you want to set the message to this variable that we've created. You want to show the loader as false, and then you want to make sure the message modal is open. Okay, then it's modal open. We want to set this to false. So at the end, we want to see only one modal open for the message response, and then we're going to return. But in case there's a success, then what are we going to do? We can just connect to the Twilio meeting, and then we would need to provide the necessary parameters that we need. So look at that. Now here, for join this Twilio meeting with the token, we call this from the service, and the same join meeting that we join with the admin, we did the same thing. It needs a token over here. The room name is the meeting ID. Now the container ID here, we named it as container ID. Okay, so this the three parameters the same method needs as a JS method needs in order to attach this current user to the meeting. Okay, and then we need to also set the opacity, the same thing to true as we did for the admin. We show the loader as false, and then we set this opacity to 1, meaning that we need to create an opacity variable here, which is going to be integer, and set this to 0 for a default hidden state. Okay. Now the next thing that we're going to be doing here is, if I click on OK from the message pop-up, then you know what's going to happen, isn't it? I want to set this message to false so I can close that. Okay, so that is what we need to do in here. Now that we are done with this client, we are going to create this service. That's a Twilio service, because you can see that we have a lot of services that we need to create. From the meeting service, we have authentication service, and now we have the Twilio service. We have 3 services what we're going to be creating. Okay, so we're going to break on from here, and when we return, we're going to build that service and then run application to see how it's looking like. But well, I think before we do that, we need to make sure we add the CSS and the JS reference of the Fluent API that we installed. So from the index.html, we can go there and now add all the necessary references in there. So we need, the first one is we need the Twilio SDK. So for this SDK, we're going to have SDK here. So with this SDK that we need, it's a link that we can reference it. Then we're going to also create our own custom JS, which will connect to the SDK. As you can see from the diagram, we're going to have this JS, which is going to connect with the SDK and then connect to the Twilio API. So we also going to create that over here as twilio-video.js. Okay. Then we need the package that is my model. It takes in a small JS. So we need to also include that as Netcode-Hub content, Netcode-Hub packages, that component, that model, and model.js. And then we need to also make reference with the Fluent UI, CSS as well. So that is what we have over here. Content, Microsoft.Fluent UI, the rest Netcode component, CSS, and now we have the variable CSS. So this is what we also need to add it here. And I think that is all. That is all that we need to do in here to make this work. Good. So let's break, and when we return, we're going to work on with our 3 services: authentication service, our meeting service, and our Twilio service. Hello guys, welcome back again to the next video. Now in this, we're going to look at how we can create our meeting service, our authentication service, and the Twilio service. But before we hop into these 3 services, we're going to create our custom auth state provider, which is responsible for authenticating the user when the component changes or when the user navigates to a next component. It is the responsibility of this custom auth state to make sure this user is authenticated based on that specific component requirement. So let's go and create this service. So in our folder that we created for states, we're going to add this custom auth state provider too. So let's go and create a class as custom auth state provider. Now within this, we're going to inject our local storage. That is the iLocal storage from Netcode-Hub packages. And we're going to call it as local storage service. And also we're going to be using iConfiguration because you're going to pass some settings to the app settings in our www folder. So we're going to say this is config. Okay, now that we have this, we're going to create a user which is of type of claim principal. Now this claim principal takes in a claims identity. With this identity also takes in a list of claims and now the type, authentication type. As soon as you provide new, it means that user here is not authenticated. So that's the default user that you want to return. Okay, now with this, this has a method, it's an abstract that we can override. So let's see. We should not even override because this needs to inherit from this authentication state provider. And now with this authentication state provider, we are going to implement the abstract class that is get authentication state async. So in here, we want to get the token, and we're going to specify the token as a key or a section in the app settings. So we want to get the key here. When we get the key, we want to go and check first. In case this key is null, then you want to return. This should be an async. In case it's null, you want to return this user. Remember that this user here is already null, right? So we can return it straightforward. In case it isn't, then we want to get the key from the token. So get token from the local storage. So we're going to say that we can store this as token. And now we can also check in case this token is null, then we want to return same. So we're doing that step by step so that we do not make any mistake. We do not, so that as soon as we could not get what we want, we return anonymous user. Okay, so we can say if this token is null, then we want to return the same thing. In case it isn't, what are we going to do? We want to set claim. So this user that we have over here, we're going to create a new instance from a method and now set the claim out of it, passing this token to this method. So it means this method needs to return a claim principal, which takes in a string of token, and that is what we have over here. Now we can say that in case the user come and it is also null, because user here should not be null. It should have an instance of a claim principal with a claims identity which contains a claims and now the authentication type. In case it doesn't have any, then it's going to be null. In case it is null, then you know what we are doing. We also going to return the same user of null. But in case it isn't, then we want to return authentication state. Now, instead of this user, we're going to be saying with the same user. Okay, so maybe this is what you're going to be doing. If this is null, we can get rid of this because at the end of the day, it's going to return the same user. If this is null, it's going to return null. In case it isn't, then this is going to return an instance with value, right? Good. So I think we can streamline that and remove that from this method. All right, then let's go to the next one, which is going to set authenticated user. But before that, when we check with the set claims, we can go ahead and create our method first, which actually is going to be a private to get claims or to set claims. We have it over there, and this takes in a token. So with this token, we're going to get it from here. We're going to use this JWT security token handler from the system.identitymodel.token.jwt namespace. In that you want to read the token and read the claims and then return a new principal with the claims as you have over here. And then the type that we're going to specify is JWT auth. But in case this runs and there's an issue of this token, whether it is invalid, whatever it is, we're going to have a catch. And now when this happens, we're creating new instance of this principal with this new token, which will be assigned to this user and then pass it on here. Simple as that. Okay. Now we can make this as private, since make it private here. Great. Now, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to set this user authenticated. So when we log in for the first time, you want to set this user authenticated. What are we doing here? We're passing the token from the service, and now we check, we want to get a key from our app settings. In case it isn't null, then we want to save this. So that is a key. So instead of specifying it here, I think it's appropriate that you say that there is a key. Okay, so now grab this key and then pass the key here. When you do this, it becomes easy for you when you're running or when you're debugging it. And then we do want to split this because you're not having the refresh token attached. I'll cover that in the advanced. Then we want to specify the key here as set users claim. So this is going to return an instance of claim with the correct token provided. After we save it to local storage, then we return, in case this is null, from this we want to return that. Okay, but then we are checking it over here because in case this is null, there is no need for us to do this, or maybe I think there is, because when the user is authenticated in the first place and down the line the user is no more authenticated and user becomes null, you need to notify the component state to change and to make sure user is no more authenticated. Okay, so that is what we're doing for this set user. Now the next thing is to set user log out. So if I click on log out, Remember that we creating a service to handle this. Now for this log out, we know the key already. We check if the key is null, meaning you cannot log out. But in case it isn't, then you want to delete it from the local storage. And after deleting it, what is the next thing that we're going to be doing? The user that we have, we want to override that. This user contains the claims principal. We want to update it with a new instance of null and then notify the state with the same instance of user, and then user authentication is no more. Okay, so that is what we need to do within this custom auth state. Okay, so now that we are good here, let's go up there and then work with our services, which is the auth service, meeting service, and then the Twilio service. So I'm going to create a folder and I'll name it as services within the client. So within this services folder, I'm going to first create my authentication service. And now in that, I'm going to say auth service. So let's add it. I'm going to extract it as an interface and implementation. So auth service. And now with this auth service, what are the methods that I need here? I need just login, create user account. And maybe refresh token will come later on. So for now, let's go ahead with our login and then I create user account. So user can now log in, and I can see that it is returning a login response and I create user response. It's also taking in a parameter or a payload of login user request and I create user request. We did that, or we created all these within the shared library. So when you check here, we have all of them in the authentication. You can cross check again and check it out. Okay, now let's go and implement this. So with the implementation, we're going to have our public class. And now with this class, we're going to have this auth service, which is going to inherit from this auth service. Then let's implement the interface here. Now with this, we need to inject some services over here. One is HTTP extension. Now this extension is responsible to get us a token, a public token, not a public token, public HTTP client and our private HTTP client. Private HTTP client is any client which has authorization in the header. Public one does not have any authorization. So this interface is responsible of handling that. Aside from that, we're also going to be using this iLocal storage. That's the local storage. We're also going to be using this here. Okay. So now that we are good, we have all this. And I think one is left out. Let me make it in this way. And I need configuration, which is config. Okay. So we need these three we're going to inject all this here. Now, if I click on create account or create user account, the first thing that I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to create a public client, because if a user wants to create an account, you don't need to be authenticated first before you create an account, isn't it? Yeah, so let's have a result set over here. And I will say that this is equal to an await. Then we have this HTTP extension. We're going to create a method known as get public client. And now this public client is going to be a client with no authorization header. And in that, we can go out and I'll make this post as JSON async. Okay, and now with this, we can go ahead and I'll specify our controller, which is auth, and our method that you want to call, and then pass on this user as payload. Okay, so that is what we need to make sure we have this call to our controller. Now we're going to return this service. So we're going to say that maybe you are saying we are asking, oh, why don't you check if the status is success or not? Now in our controller, we're going to make it in a way that in case it even is not successful, as soon as it gets connected with the controller, it's going to return a create user response. And within that, that's where you're going to set the state. Is it successful? That's where you have the Boolean expression. And in case we have even an extra message, you can pass on to the message. Okay. So with it, we can just use straight ahead. And I'll say that the results that we have, we can extract the content here, and we can go for read from JSON async, and then we going to pass in this create user response. Okay, so this is what we are doing. The next one that we're going to be doing is the login. Now login is quite same, so I'm going to grab what I have here and then paste it on. But in that, we're going to make sure we change the route. So here I'm going to say that this should be an async, and then we get the public client as well. Then we post as JSON, and in that we're going to get access to this controller, and now there's a route, the endpoint, and we're going to return a read from this login user response. So that's what we're going to read, and I'll return it. Okay, so by doing this, we have been able to create our auth service nicely. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be doing here is we want to fix this issue before we move on. We need to create this extension. So let's see. Now for now, with our refresh token and this, we are not going to be using them here. So maybe we can skip that for now. Then let's go and have our extension. Now with this extension, we can also create a folder, and I'll name it as maybe extensions. So in the services, let's have our folder and call it as extensions, because it is not only this HTTP client. We can also create even local storage extension to set and now get using the package or the Netcode-Hub local storage package as well. In there, let's go and create this as an interface. Now with this, we're going to make it as an interface, then HTTP extension. Now with this extension, we're going to return two instances. The first instance is the HTTP client, which returns a public client. The second instance is a task, because you're going to await that. And now we're going to create and return the same HTTP client, which returns get private client. Let's go and implement it down here. So we're going to say that's a public of class, then which is going to inherit from this interface. Let's implement it. Then we have this. Now in here, since we have already installed our Microsoft extensions.http package, we can go ahead and inject this HTTP client factory. After that, we can also inject our local storage. So this is where we need it most, local storage service. And then we can go ahead and now get our configuration, which is going to be a config. So by having all these, we are good. We can move on with it. Now with this get public, we first want to return a create client. So this is going to be a method that we're going to create here as a private method. It's going to return a client, and now we are saying create client. Now when you call this create client, it's going to create a client here. Now specify the client name. This client name is going to come from the session, the app settings that we're going to create. We're going to create a section known as an HTTP client, and we're going to create a key as what? The name, and we're going to specify value over there. So we want to grab the value from here. Okay, and then we return it as this. So this is going to return the client of this, because create client is going to return HTTP what client. Great. So once you have that, if I click on public, get public client, I can just directly refer this or return this method straightforward. I can return it. And if I go for get private client, it means first of all, I need to create a client of this by calling this method. After creating this client, I need to get the token from the local storage. So I need to get the key. So I'm going to say this is a string of key. Then I'm going to say is config. And now with this config, the section is token, and now the key is key. Okay. And once I have this, I can even check if this is not null. Okay, so we can say that if key is null, then maybe we can return this public. So if key is null, then you can return this client because you have already created a client here. So if key is null, you can return this client. Let's make sure it's an await, it's in task. Okay, but in case key it isn't null, then we want to add the key to the header and then return the client. So pass it on. So we're going to say that if key is not equal to null, then we want to add this header. So maybe this is what we can do. If key is not equal to null, then we want to add this. But first, we need to get, okay, so we have the key, right? But we haven't gotten the token yet. Oh, okay. So we need to get a token from the local storage. And in that, this is going to be after we have the key. So we can say that if key is null, return client. If key is not null, then get the token. And I'll pass in the key. So once you have this, we're going to make sure key is, okay, so if key is equal to null, that's what we're doing. Okay, then from here, we get a token. So we can also check if token is equal to null, then maybe if token is not found, then you want to return the same client. But in case token is found, then we're going to check this, add the token here, and I return. So here I can say that if token is not equal to null, then go and do this. Okay, and at the end, go and return the client. So even if token is null, it's going to return client. But in case it isn't null, that's just going to execute this and then return client. So as soon as I get this private client, I'm going to have an HTTP client with authorization header added, and I can make a protected call. Okay. So let's go back to our auth service, and here we can include the namespace directly here. And the post as JSON is coming from system.net.http. So we can also reference that. Good. So we are done with our auth service. And when you go to the import.razor, we can go and inject it here. So we can say that inject iAuth service. Then we say auth service. So with this control period, we can include this. And now when we check this register page and all the pages which need this auth service, that issue will be solved. So quickly check it from the admin, authentication, landing page, and now check it out. This auth, where the auth service is now solved, right? So left with authentication of auth state provider. We're going to tackle that soon, don't worry. So now we have this auth service created. We're also going to work with our meeting service and then the Twilio service. Okay, so with the meeting service, we're going to also create same in the services folder. So an interface, and I'll be saying that this is iMeeting. Let's add a service to it. iMeeting service. Now this meeting service, we're going to have create meeting, get recent meeting, and then we can even attach details to connection ID. We can work with that, or we can, maybe this, okay, for now. Let's have these three methods here for the basic flow. So with this, we having our create meeting response, get meeting response, and now get recent meeting response. Create meeting, get meeting, and now get recent meetings. Okay, all of these are passing in with a create meeting as a request. It takes in a payload of the meeting, create meeting request. With a get meeting, takes in a host ID as well as get recent meeting. Now let's go and implement this service. Now with this, we're going to be using the same HTTP service that we have created over here. And in that, with this get meeting or create meeting, we are also going to create meeting. And we can just go ahead and grab what we created or what we did in the service and I'll bring it here. Okay, so this should be an await. Let's make this method async. And then we need to use system.net.http. We're going to create a controller known as what meeting and our endpoint known as create. We pass in this meeting model. And I'm going to read a response over here as create or create meeting response. So we can just directly return this. And I get rid of this one. Now with this get meeting, we're going to be doing the same thing. We can also read or get it by making this method at async. We need to get it private because you know that before user can create, you must be authenticated. So for all the meeting services, we're going to be using a private HTTP client. Okay, so let's make this as async. And then from here, we're going to create extension, get it private, and now get async controller and now the host ID. So if I pass in, there's a controller meeting, and if I pass in the host ID, it's going to get me the list of meeting from here as the meeting response. Okay, so this meeting response takes in a list of get meeting. So this is going to be a list, and I'm going to return that here. The same thing applies to if I click on get recent meeting, it's going to do same. So let's see. Now with get recent meeting, we're going to be doing same here by making sure this method is async. And then we're going to return this by the host ID. Okay. So we are also done with our service here. Let's go and work with our Twilio service. Now this service will be responsible for generating the token and also connecting to the JavaScript SDK for the Twilio so that our video and our audio can start. So within that, we also going to create an new item. And now we're going to say this is iTwilio service. It should be an interface. And in that we having the first method in it, which is join meeting. So first going to join meeting, but I'm sure this should not be the first one. We first need to generate a token before we join meeting. Okay, so generate token from here and then we join meeting. So for meeting token generation, we need a username and now the meeting ID. For joining meeting, we need a token, the room name, and now the container ID. Okay, let's implement this method. Now with this, we need to include or we need to inject RJS runtime. So let's inject it as a JS runtime because we're going to be making a call to JS method. And then we need our this IHTTP extension since you're also going to be making an API call. Okay, we need this too. Now for our join meeting, what are we going to do? We're going to specify that nicely here. So with the join meeting, we can even use this lambda to join the meeting nicely. Okay, so when you check here, I want to move this so you can see it well. New line, okay, still. Okay, so when you check here, this should be an async. Now within this async, we are going to be calling this window.twilio video .connect room. So this is a name that I created. Okay, you can just customize any of them. But when you get there, I'll show you where to customize it from. Now it takes in 3 parameters, the token over here, the room name, and now the container ID. Okay, now that's what we need to join from this. So before you call this JS function, you must provide these parameters. And also let's look at how you can make an API call to get a token. We also need to use this interface extension that we created or we injected, and then we can make a call to that. So when you check here, this should be an async. Within this async, we want to get a public because this should be a public endpoint. So you provide in your username and the meeting ID, and then it's going to return a Twilio service response, which takes in the data as a T model and also the Boolean expression as a success state, and also the message for any external response that you want to attach to it. Okay, and then we move on with that. Okay, so that is all that we need to do for this Twilio service. Both the interface and the implementation. Now that we're good with that, we're going to register all the services that we have created and even the extra services that we need from the Fluent, from the Netcode-Hub, from the ones that we have created ourselves, everything in the program.cs file. So go to your Blazor and your clients here from your program.cs file. We're first going to be adding this Fluent API component, which is very crucial for this. If you don't add this, you're going to have an issue with that. So please do add it. Do not forget. The next thing that we're going to talk about here is we need to also add my local storage service. So I have that here. Make sure you do add it, else you're going to have an issue. Trust me. Then we're going to be adding we need to create a client name from this. Now, this client name that we're going to create, we are going to get it from the configuration. In case this is now from the page start, we want to return this. This is a client name. And now with the client name, we are going to register this HTTP client, and then we're going to take in the client name. So we're going to register that, and I'm passing this client name. So there's a client name. We have that here. We can close it. And now bear in mind that we are also going to create a server-based address, and we're passing on the server-based address from the app settings in here, so that anytime that you want to change it, you want to change the server, maybe you've deployed it and want to specify the server address, you do not do it here. You can do it straight forward in the app settings, okay, making it a great option for you and I. Okay, and then we want to set the base address on API and then // so we can just skip this and now pass on a controller name / our endpoint or the method route. Okay, after we're done with this, we need to register the 3 services that we created, and they are, one is what, the auth service, second one is a meeting service, and now the last one here, it is a okay, we need to add a Twilio service, isn't it? So let's go and add that. So that's the Twilio service. Okay, good. So now that we're done, we also created an extension that we need to add. So we have only one extension and we have registered that. We also created our custom auth state. So we need to register that and now create an instance of it. So you register this custom auth state here as a scope. And then in there, we need to add it. So let's register for authentication state provider. And then we create service. We get this service here as a custom auth state provider. Okay. Now we need to add authorization call. This is very important for authorization component. Then we also need to add this cascading authentication state provider, not the provider, state itself. Now, when you add this, you do not need to add cascading component around your app.razor. Okay, all that you do here is specify the authorized route, and that is all. Okay, so that is what we need. We have already registered our nav state over here, so we can go ahead and get rid of this. Okay, then we have this registered. Okay, so that is all we need to do here to make our client work well. Right, so let's see, let's save it well. And let's go to our app settings. So we can find that from your www root folder. We are having this app settings, but in case you do not have yours, unless you create a new one. So I'm not having mine here. So I'm going to right click on this, then add new item. And here I can just go for app settings. So that is this one, app settings.json. Click on add, and this will be added here. So we have a default stuff created. And in that, we're going to modify that and add our own. So first, we are going to add our server. Now, of this server, we need the base address of this server. So let's go to our server and then check from the properties folder, line settings, and here it's right on 7170. Can grab that, come back and replace it. We also need a client, so we're going to create client for this, and the name is an API client. Then lastly, we need a token section to handle agility token. So if you want to change the key, there's no way that you need to tackle that in the application. Tackle it here and it will get reflected everywhere. Okay, so we have this created nicely. We saved that. Okay, so let's go and rebuild this project, and let's see, we're going to rebuild the client. So we're having an issue here. It is saying that the hosted provider not found, meeting.js not found. Oh, I get it, meeting service. Because when you check, we only injected the IOT service. Do you remember? So from our import.razor, we forgot to do that. So in here, we can also inject iMeeting service. Then we say this is meeting service. Then we're going to also inject theme Twilio service. Okay, now that we're done, we're going to inject our custom hosted provider, which will give us access to the method that we have in our custom hosted. We need to do that. Then we also need to register our configuration here, so we can use it everywhere in a component when the need arises. Okay, so now that we have this, we need to check our error list. I think these are things that we need to fix. Now going there to rebuild it again will get rid of these issues because we have solved them. Okay, so it is saying that hosted provider does not, okay, this one exists. Okay, but the next one is meeting button click does not exist. Okay, so it should be shadow meeting, and I believe you made that change, right? So let's see from here. Okay, now let's check it from the error list again, and then we're going to rebuild solution. Okay, so I think this is done, but I want to check here. We have some issues that we need to fix. I want to check our join meeting. It seems we created the code, but we did not add the UI. Yes, we forgot that. So we need to go and update the join meeting UI. And now with this join meeting UI, we are going to just replace same as what we did in the admin. Okay, now from this, it should be container ID, not the element ID. Okay, now with this, we are going to have maybe an input, but there's going to be a modal. So with this modal, we did not have it. Let's go and specify our loader. So this is going to be the loader. Now show loader here, we need to include the namespace of this, and then we need our message modal. We have the variables already created at message. Let's remove this for now. We have our message modal and we have it created here. And then we have when OK is clicked, we know what is happening. Then we need to have our modal again. Now this modal is going to be a pop-up modal, which is from this is modal open. This is going to give the user access to provide the name. So you can see from this, we are using this Fluent edit form. With this Fluent edit form, we are specifying few things here. Check it out. The first thing that we're doing here is we specify the content template in the Netcode-Hub model. Then we say join meeting. That's the header here. And now within this card body, we are using this edit form. And now when the user clicks on this, we are saying connect to meeting. And we are issuing data annotation validator. So it validates this because already you know that from here we have added this required attribute. So it is going to enforce that rule. And then we are using this fluent field or test field. The width is what we have specified. And now we're saying that hey, provide your name. We specify the value. We bind it to this connect profile.name. And now when the button is clicked, it's a submit type that is join meeting. Okay, so with this, that is where we're going to join the meeting. So it means here after we don't need to initialize this because this is going to be a join meeting. Now, when user clicks on join meeting, that is why we're going to set this modal as false. And then we're going to start with this. So when the user clicks on, when the page initializes, we want to set this modal to true. That is the only thing that we're going to be doing. Now here, to generate meeting token and a join meeting, we're going to set that in this method. So we can grab this from here. And then there's going to be a method known as async task. Which is connect to meeting. Now with this connect to meeting, that is what this is going to be fired on when this is clicked. Now when you check this, this should, okay, this can be void. Okay, now from here, I'll override void on initialize. Okay. Now, when the button is clicked, we want to first generate the token. So we want to generate the token from here, and then we want to join the meeting, right? So that is what we are doing here. I think this is going to solve the problem. Okay, so now that we are done, we're going to rebuild the solution again, and now check the next suggestions that is going to provide. So we're having two more here. That is a meeting page.show loader is not. Okay, so we have it here and we're using that. Let's check the next one. Okay, we have this and we're using it here. Okay. All right. So we have all created done nicely. So now that we're done with all the stuff in our client, we can run this and check this out. So let's see. So you can see that from here we are logged in and we have the login over here. Then this is we have like provide the email address and password, right? Then we have login. This is our footer that we created, and that is our header with the label that we specified, right? Now here we do not have anything, so if I click on login, let's see what's going to happen. We are not validating this model, right? We did not create validation for this login over here, but let's go and check from here. If I right click on this, go to inspect element, then check from this, we have an issue. It could not connect to the service, right? So I want to check here. So maybe a simple thing, simple validation that we can add is, let's go and check this landing page. Now, when this is clicked, we are calling this over here fluent. We are not adding any validation. So let's put it on top. And then let's add the message here. So now that we're good, we can go to the request, which is for authentication request, login request. And in here, we can add this required attribute. Now, when you run this again, let's check it out. And also, when this is running, I think you need to go to the header component, and then what we commented, you need to get rid of it because I think you might have some issue with it if you leave it. So get rid of that, like this one. Yeah, so we can get rid of this one. Let's wait, run it again. All right, so now that is ready. Click on login, and I can see we have these issues. Provide that. Now with this, even if I provide something in here, let's see what's going to happen. And now click on login. Let's see. Now from this, we're going to have, I think, fetch issue. Yes, it could not make any API call, proper API call with it. So let's see from this. So you can see our Twilio script is not also found because we haven't created it yet. And we are yet to create that. And let's see. So if I check from here, we have the preview, the response, when we are getting this. Because our if service or a server is not actually is not available. So this is our payload. Okay, so that means when we click on this, that actually there's a service in place. Good. Now here I think I have some token. So let me just grab one. I believe this token is expired. But let's go to there's the application. And now from the local storage, let's have token, paste this here, and then let's refresh this page. When you refresh this page, we're going to navigate to the dashboard because we assume the user is authenticated, and now we have a token. So let's see. Okay, so I think my page is frozen. I don't know whether I provided bad token or not. Okay, so it is saying that cannot read property or null. All right, so continue on. Let's check from here. Okay, so from this, once you have the token, we're going to make an API call, I think from the dashboard, to get recent and current meetings, right? Let's put out the header is going to have authorization, meaning the extension that we created is working. From the dashboard, we are here, and I'll check it out. Yes, so you can see they have authorization. This has been added, but there's no response. Okay, so one reason or one way of skipping this is you can validate or you can read a token. You can validate it. The server address that you have, you can also validate and make sure the token is valid before you send it. But well, if I provide this token to this, well, it has opened. But if I make any API call, that is where the problem will erupt from. Okay, so let's assume this is, we have upcoming meeting, then we have a recent meeting, is null. So, and I think this need to work. As soon as I click on schedule meeting, we should have a pop-up that is a modal to get the current meeting and the recent meeting. So in order for this to show or to pop up, I think we need to navigate to the dashboard, and then I think we can include state as change. I think this will make it work. Now let's save it. Let's check it out from here, and I can see it's working. So when you click on that, state has already changed, but you need to add this so it can refresh the page and get this done. And if I click on cancel, the same thing is happening. So we need to also include state as change. So there's an OP model. Close, then cancel should be around somewhere. So we have schedule over here. Open model, get meeting, get recent, cancel. So the same thing. It should have state has changed, and now I think that's fine. Okay. So this will make it work. Okay. So now that we have this, you see we're having an issue here, and this is what we're going to be doing. Now in all our services that we have created, talking about the authentication service, we can integrate try-catch block to handle all issues and then return null. Okay, so check it out from here. For my auth service, we know that here we're going to run this. Since our server does not exist, there's going to be an issue. So in case there's an issue, we can catch this here and then return new response of this. Now with this new response, we need to specify this create user credential. So with this new create user, and then we can specify, I think data is null. So maybe it's success is what we need. That is false. Then message, maybe, so error connecting to server, something like this. Okay, so you can return that. You see? So that's going to be the catch. And let's close this. So that's to create account. Now we can drag same thing around. So for login, we can do same. And instead of this response, we're going to say here, it has the same thing. With this new login user response, I think it takes in token as well. So this token, we're saying this is null. Then we can have this specified. Okay. Then let's say the next one I can grab again. Let's go to the other services and make sure the UI is resilient so that in case even there's error in making an API call, it still stays put. Let's see. Okay. Now this should be a create. This should return a create meeting response, which should be same as this. Now with this, you will get meeting response. And now here, data is already null, so we can maintain that. And then we go in and do same here. Okay, so now that we have this created, we have all this created with try catch block. Let's go and run it again and check this out. Okay, so we have it over here, and now there's no issue when it runs. And if I click on schedule meeting, I have this popped up. Click on cancel, schedule meeting, create this, and let's see from this. So we having this exception over here that's a nullable object must have a value. We can see we need to validate it, so we can apply this validation attribute on top, so we can skip handling that. Okay. All right. So this is working. That's active. Now we're going to look at our Twilio service. So we're going to create a JS service. Now this service should be responsible for joining the user to the meeting and also communicating with the Twilio SDK and then owning our camera and stuff. Okay, so let's see how we're going to work on that. So let's go and create this JS. I think we have the www folder. We can add another folder here and name it as JS. Now within this folder, we can go ahead and create our Twilio. So we check for our JavaScript file. So Twilio video, then we can have .js, and actually it should be the same name as what we have here, Twilio video.js, and which should be the same. Okay. So now that we have this, we're going to have access to our, let's say, our local track. Now, if I talk about tracks here, based on Twilio, track comprises of your audio and your video. So for a specific user, you may have 2 or more tracks, your audio and your video. They are all tracks. We might focus mainly in the video track. So here we want to create a method which is going to connect the user. So with this, we're going to have a method down here. Now with this method, we're going to say connect to room, which takes in a parameter of the token, room name, and our container ID. And I believe you and I created this already, so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, now we want to make sure as soon as we create it, you call this, you want to make sure your video, your tracks are on. So this a track that we want to create a local tracks. This are audio, so turn on your audio on your computer, and also turn on your video. So this is going to turn it, and we're going to store that globally here. Now the next thing that we're going to be doing here is we want to go in there and now set this track to an active room. So we're going to create an active room over here as a global variable. And now your track that we have, we're going to add it to this room. This is going to be an array or a list. So with this, we're going to say that, hey, this active room is equal to await Twilio video.connect. We have the token already. There's a token here. And then we want to specify the name, that is a room name, and then your track, which is the local track, which is your audio and our video. So these are the payload that this connect or this method needs, this Twilio method needs in order to connect you to the room. Okay, now that we are done, as soon as we want you to attach, or you want to attach the remote, now you are connected, so you're going to be added to the room, right? Now, what of the next person? Let's say you are the admin, so you're connected to the room. If attendee joins, or if any user joins, we want to attach that person also to the room. So this is going to work for the admin and also for the user. So in that, we're saying that attach remote participant, so we can have access to another method over here, active room.participant.for each. So we want to attach them, and in that we're creating a separate class to handle that. And we specify the participant and also the container ID. We're making the container ID dynamic so that admin can use the same JS, and also a user, which is attendee, can also use the same JS. Now, when you connect, anybody who connects, you want to listen for new participants and also attach them. So if I connect, I want to wait for the next person who connects. I must see it in my computer, on my computer, right? So we're going to be listening for that and attach it. So there's an event listener participant connected. So we do that, and as soon as you connect, we want to log this and also call this attach participant track, which contains the participant here, now the container ID as well. Now, what of if a user disconnect? We can also listen to that and I know that, hey, this guy is disconnected. So we can also look out for this event, participant disconnected, and now we want to log that. And then you want to detach it from the track. Okay. Then, what of in case you disconnect? You yourself, when you disconnect, we can also fire this event, and this event also disconnects you. So as soon as you disconnect, you must see this in the console. Hey, you've left, and you're going to detach all tracks, meaning your tracks, your personal track that you have in there, which is your audio and your video, is going to remove it, and then you'll be off. Okay. Now the function to attach a participant is what you're going to look at for. So let's create this function to attach a participant. Now all these are happening in the connect to room. Now after that, we have in this method attach participant to track, which takes in these parameters, participant and a container ID. We're going to loop through that, and I'll add that to the DOM. The DOM is going to be the element that we created, the ID. So we specify the track over here, and then because we're using for each, it's going to attach all with the ID as well. Okay. Then we're going to subscribe. So in that, we're going to add it to the DOM. That is an element that we're going to create. And now when you unsubscribe, you're going to remove it as well. Okay. Then finally, when you leave, you want to detach everything from here. So we can detach it as a function. And then we are going to loop through that and remove everything. And then finally, the function to add this track to the DOM so that you can see yourself in the video is this. So from here, we add track to the DOM, we pass in the track and then the container ID. So if you are admin passing the track, which is your video, and also the container ID, which is the host video container that we created, and then we want to get that element by ID. So we want to get that div element, and then in case we do have that, we want to attach it, right? Then we append it as a chart to that element, and then we want to log this to the console so you can see. So with this method, you can add yourself. People can also add themselves, and you and others can see each other. It's quite simple. Okay, so that is the final thing that we need to do with our client, which is the Blazor WebAssembly. Okay, great. So we have it specified also here, Twilio video.js nicely. And now when we run this, we must see this in the JS file. So let's run it and check whether this will be found in there. Now I'm going to right click on this, go to inspect, and in here, check for this application. And from your frames, check for your JavaScript and see Twilio video. Yes, you have it. So this is active. Great. We can close this. Now it is the time for us to tackle the back end, which is the API. Okay. So with this, we need to first create an account with Twilio. Now, when you create an account with Twilio, that is when you're going to have access to app ID, the account ID, API keys, and a whole lot of keys. These keys are very crucial for us to connect. Now, if you are thinking of, for Twilio, you need to make a payment. But if you're a developer, they give you some credit that you can use for your testing. And that is what I've been using since I started this project, okay? So don't worry, you can also use the same thing, but in production, you then need to make a payment, and then you can use their service in your project. Okay, so let's go and hop into it. And then in the next video, we're going to break it down. In the next video, we're going to access the portal, create an account. Actually, we're going to log in there because I have an account created already. And for creating an account, it's quite simple. I'll show you the steps. Create your credentials, grab your keys, and now you're good to go.